Episode of National Review Facebook Live interview series. I'm Erica Anderson, and today I'm here with Justin Constantine, who is a U.S. Marine who is featured in President George W. Bush's new book, Portraits of Courage. So thank you so much for coming on, Justin.
Oh, yeah, thanks, Erica. It's great to be here, and I'm really thrilled the opportunity to talk about President Bush's book.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just looking over it before we got on this call, and it's hard to believe that, he was the former president, and yet he's this super talented artist as well. And I think this is his third book of paintings, or at least this third effort doing paintings like this. And what an honor it is for you to be featured in that book.
Yeah, you're right. He doesn't have a long history in painting. It's just something he decided he wanted to do, and he's taken lessons, and he paints every day. And I've been down to the Bush Institute, so I've seen some of the real pictures he's painted of world leaders, and it's pretty incredible. It's an inspiration to a lot of us at what someone can do when they put their mind to it.
Right, and I think this book, I believe, it features all wounded warriors that have been wounded overseas since September 11th, 2001. Is that right?
Yes, the people who he painted in this book are all wounded warriors. Of course, there are many other wounded warriors. These are the ones he picked, who he's gotten to know over the last 5 or 10 years.
Well, and just like it's an honor for you to be in that book, it's an honor for me to speak with you. You were injured in Iraq in 2006. I am married to a veteran, so I have so much respect for all of you and all the sacrifices that you make, but especially being injured overseas. I don't know if you can go into just a short story of what happened to you and how you were able to overcome that and become you're an inspirational speaker, you speak on leadership, you've written a book, you've done so much. So if you can just get us a little peek into your story, that would be awesome.
Yeah, sure. I'll just give you a quick snapshot. But like you said, I deployed to Iraq. It was 2006, so just over 10 years ago. And I was fortunate enough to be in a position to lead a small team of Marines. We were attached to a Marine infantry battalion in Al Anbar, Iraq, which 10 years ago was seeing a lot of contact with the enemy, a lot of action. And I was there for a few months, and we were out on one of our patrols, and I was shot in the head by a sniper. And we knew the sniper was in the area. He'd already killed a few of our Marines in the past couple of weeks. We actually had some counter-sniper teams out looking for him. But he tried to shoot the reporter who was with us, and then he shot me in the head, shot the Marine behind me also, but he was okay. And so thanks to the truly heroic efforts of a young Navy corpsman and the other Marines around me, including the battalion commander, Colonel DeGrossier, their quick action and incredible fortitude under fire, they were able to save me and keep me stable until I got to the aid station where the doctors could take over. And actually, just last year in October, I spoke at an event, and I met two of the doctors who operated on me at 30 minutes after I was shot. So that was pretty incredible. But so many people have been so important to me in recovering. I probably took about 8 months or so till I could go back to work, and I was a reservist at the time, so I went back to work as a lawyer with the federal government. But I continue to have surgeries to this day. 10 years later, I'm still having some work done on my mouth, but I've probably had a couple dozen reconstructive surgeries. So it's been a long road, but I've had some incredible people around me, first and foremost my wife, and together we've made it work.
Yeah, I think I saw in one of the videos on your website that she had mentioned that they didn't even know if you would be able to speak again.
Yeah, in fact, she and my friends pooled their money together not long after I was shot and to buy a computer that would speak for me because my head was so swollen. It looked like a basketball. It was really incredible. And so I couldn't talk for weeks, and the doctors didn't know if it was because the corpsman had accidentally cut my vocal cord when he performed an emergency tracheotomy, which wouldn't have been unreasonable, or if it was just from the swelling. And then one night in the intensive care unit, I kind of woke up and I heard that people saying my name, and I said my name. I repeated it, and Dahlia was there and started crying, and she got my family in there because I had no idea what was going on. I didn't know where I was, but that was a really uplifting moment for them because they realized I would be able to talk.
Right, and they probably had no idea that you'd be giving TED Talks, and not only would you be talking a lot.
I think they were okay with me not talking for a little while. So.
Now they're like, you're talking too much.
That's right. That's right.
So where do you think, because I don't know that everyone, necessarily has it in them to be able to overcome something so difficult. Where do you get your hope and your inspiration to overcome so much and then be able to take that and inspire other people on top of it?
Yeah, well, thanks, Erica. And I've thought about this a lot. And I think part of it just starts with, who I was before I deployed, and frankly, the fact that I was in good physical shape and exercised a lot and had a clean living style. The doctors told me that played a lot with the physical aspect of my recovery. But you're talking more about the mental, and I certainly had my dark days as well. But early on, Dahlia and I identified I had post-traumatic stress, and probably the best thing I could have done, and I did do, was seek counseling for that. So I went to counseling through a nonprofit called Give an Hour that provides free mental health counseling to postnatal and vets and their families. And so I was able to find a practitioner in my area, in my neighborhood. And so I went pretty much every week for 18 months, more or less. And that made a huge difference. Just being able to talk to someone who had worked with other warriors and who could show me and demonstrate that what I experienced that I was going through was normal. And if I wasn't having these weird reactions, I say weird, but these reactions, that would actually be a little bit abnormal after what I've been through. And so that made a big difference, because up until then, I was so embarrassed about what happened. I didn't want to see anybody. I didn't want help from anybody. And I was starting to lash out and, a lot of the typical symptoms. And so asking for help, and I wish more people felt comfortable with that, in the military and outside as well. So that was a big part. But having my wife, Dahlia, who was my girlfriend at the time, and then I proposed to her a year later, but she put her life on hold to be there for me. And so she was incredible. And so she was a cornerstone in my recovery. And so, I want to mention Dahlia specifically, but caregivers in general, again, in the veteran community, but also across America as a whole, they're really the unsung heroes in these situations, and they don't get enough credit. And so from there, I had a lot of other people. It really does take a village. I had people helping me with going back to work or different veteran opportunities, different recovery opportunities. And then I also just spent some time on my own thinking about what I want to do with life. Life is definitely going to be different now. Doesn't mean it's worse. And in fact, in reality, it's actually a whole lot better than it ever was before. But it took some time to think about what my goals are. Can I really get there? How am I going to deal with the fact that I can't run anymore, or I can't talk very clearly, I can't see out of one eye? And it took a while, but over time, as my health got better and I had more surgeries, and I just realized I'm only limited. I'm the one putting the limits on myself. And I think that's a lesson for all of us. And so I managed to work through it. Again, a large part, I spent a lot of time talking with Dahlia. So I hope other folks can find someone who's important to them and talk through these issues. But really, I do believe we put our own limits on ourselves, and there's an incredible amount that we can achieve when we have the right mindset.
In your TED Talk, you said that you are the luckiest person you'll ever meet. Can you explain that a little bit? Because some people might not be sure what you mean.
Yeah, I mean, it does sound weird. In that TED Talk, which was called You're Stronger Than You Think You Are, and I just listed a few of the things that I've already mentioned with you, like being blind in one eye and having bones removed from my legs to reconstruct my jaws. But I said all that being said, I'm the luckiest person you'll ever meet, and that's because by all objective measures, I should not have survived to be here today. When George rolled me over, the corpsman rolled me over, I wasn't breathing. And the doctors told me after they operated on me and put me in a helicopter to go to the bigger medical facility, they didn't think I was going to survive. No one up to that point had survived that type of gunshot wound, but they were able to take what they learned from operating on me and actually develop some protocols to save other Marines later. And so I am incredibly lucky to be here, and I don't forget that, and I remind myself that often. People tell me that, and I agree with them, and so I know I have witnessed how quickly life can go away and how important it is and how we should cherish our time here. So I when I'm having a down day, I try to remind myself of that, and that helps me lead a purposeful life and a guided life, and where I'm not a pinball reacting to what's around me, but I have goals that I want to meet for myself, short and long term, and that's what I spend my time on.
Do you speak often with veterans that are also experiencing PTSD or have also been wounded?
I used to do more. I never really was that comfortable with going back in the hospital. I still have a strong reaction just to smells and the sounds. When I go back in for surgery, I'm uncomfortable there. But I do a fair amount of peer mentoring, officially and unofficially. I do talk with a lot of veterans who I meet at different events, whether it's a Winter Warrior golf tournament with President Bush or a retreat or whatever it is. And so we do talk about post-traumatic stress. In fact, the Marine Corps hired me twice, 2 years in a row, to come to Okinawa to speak to the Marines on all the bases there about overcoming adversity and post-traumatic stress and how to live a positive life after a significant setback. So I still do have plenty of opportunities to talk with other veterans, and I really enjoy that.
You mentioned Wounded Warrior Project, which I know that many people watching are probably already familiar with, but if you could just tell us a little bit about that and your role with them.
Yeah, I'm on the board of directors of probably a handful of organizations. The Wounded Warrior Project is by far the biggest, and I've been on their board the longest. And I actually first met Wounded Warrior Project when I was in the hospital, and I was a patient. And I had gone in for some surgery, and I came back, and one of the coordinators had left a Wounded Warrior Project T-shirt for me on my bed with a small note. And I still have that shirt. I mean, it's 10 years ago, almost 11 years ago, and because it told me that people across America cared about how I was doing in my recovery. And so I attended a number of their events. I really liked what they were doing. When they asked me to be on the board, I was thrilled. And so the Wounded Warrior Project is the largest veteran nonprofit, especially for post 9/11 veterans. And we focus on a number of core principles that really were focused on the physical and mental health of wounded warriors and the caregivers, also peer support, and then economic empowerment and jobs. And Wounded Warrior Project had an announcement last month where they had just had their 100,000th Wounded Warrior attend an event or receive some sort of benefit from Wounded Warrior Project. So that was a pretty significant milestone for us.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that.
Sure.
Now I wanted to ask you, I know you've obviously met President Bush. When was the first time that you met him? I
probably first met him. He has it's called the Warrior Open, a golf tournament for Wounded Warriors. I think probably around 24 or 30 get invited to come down and play, and it's an annual event. So I played in it twice, and so I think I first met him there. He and I hit it right off. I mean, I consider him a friend. I don't know. I think he knows who I am, but I guess I'm in his book, so I guess so. But I sat next to him at dinner one night, which was a real treat. And then I also introduced him. The Bush Institute has an annual event for veteran service organizations, and they asked me to introduce him at that event. And so I did that. What was really interesting was they said he specifically did not want me to spend my time talking about him, but really talking about my journey and about how some of the groups in the audience had helped, and really to inspire all the groups to do more for wounded warriors and for veterans. And just the last sentence was about him. And that really resonated with me. And the same, because he doesn't have an ego. And the same is true at the golf tournament, where I think he really looks forward to the opportunity to spend some time with the Wounded Warriors. And it's not about him. He doesn't want press there. He's not doing it for that. He takes advantage of his time to talk to all of us. And he really motivates each of us because we know his time is precious. So I spent some time with him there. He was the honorary chairman of the Invictus Games this past year. So when they announced that, I was with him at the up here in New York on the Intrepid when they made that announcement with the Fisher House. And so I've spent some time with him at a number of events, and I'll be seeing him in May down there for this year's Warrior Open as well. So really looking forward to that. That's
awesome. Yeah, he's definitely one of my number one people that I'd love to meet someday. So he definitely seems like he is exactly as he comes across.
Yeah, he is. You would enjoy it. I was also in a program called the Presidential Leadership Scholars Program, which is hosted by his library, his father's library. It's a bipartisan thing. So also the presidential libraries of President Clinton and Lyndon B. Johnson. And so I met him at a graduation. I had a picture with him and President Clinton at the same time. So not too many people have a picture like that. But so that was pretty cool. But he cares about how we're doing. He's not going to talk about himself, and I think if you do get the opportunity, you'll enjoy it.
Well, I hope so, if you're watching.
I'll put in a good word for you.
Thank you so much. So did he ask you personally if he would like to be, or if he could include you in the book?
He didn't ask me. I heard that I may be one of the folks in it, and so of course I had my fingers crossed, hoping that would happen, and ultimately it did. And then what's really neat is that for all the warriors who are in the book, they sent us because there's two versions of the book. One costs a little bit more than the other, so they sent us the one that's a little bit more expensive. But he autographed the page where I'm on there and had a little note, and so that's something that I'll probably have on my desk always. So,
oh yeah, that's pretty awesome. So I mean, this is probably an obvious answer to this question, but were you happy with the way the painting turned out?
I am. He's really good, and I mean, I have a face for radio now, so I can't really complain. But I thought it was, I showed it to my parents. They thought he did a good job. He took the picture. He painted the picture based on a picture of me from several years ago, and it really does look a lot like that picture. So I think he's a great artist now.
Yeah, I was looking through some of them and looking at some of the real pictures as well, and to me, it's just beyond me how anyone can paint true to life, and so it's pretty incredible stuff. Yeah. So I wanted to ask you as well, I know you've written a book about leadership, and so much of what you speak about is about leadership. So I guess, how do you translate that experience on the battlefield, being a soldier or being a Marine, and translate that into leadership? Because you could have gone, I guess, a couple different routes with the way what you speak about, but you chose leadership. So if you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, thanks, Erica. Yeah, when I talk to corporations, and that's what I do full time, it's usually about leadership or about overcoming adversity or about the upside of change. And sometimes it's a combination of all three. And so when I wrote the book, which is called My Battlefield, Your Office, it was about lessons I learned as a Marine, and then, of course, intensified while in Iraq, but then also during my recovery. And so no one teaches leadership like the military, and as far as I'm concerned, particularly in the Marine Corps, of course I'm biased.
Yes.
But whether you're on the officer track or the enlisted, the Marine Corps devotes a lot of time and money to making sure we're all good leaders, whether that's at 4 people, 100, or 1,000. And so I feel that there are basic Marine Corps leadership lessons that we value that apply directly to the private sector. But a lot of times in the private sector, people are promoted to managerial positions but don't learn how to lead people along the way, or that's just not, the company doesn't have the resources to do that. And so last year or a year and a half ago, I published the book to help bridge that gap, and so others could benefit from what I learned in the Marine Corps. It's been quite well received, and so I'm proud of that.
Yeah, and for those that are watching, Justin has a great website, just justinconstantine.com, and like all kinds of videos, the TED Talk, the book, all those things. So I would encourage everyone to check that out. Not to put you on the spot, but to put you on the spot, do you have any leaders that you admire or people that you really look up to for your own?
Well, I do. In the military, our battalion commander there was Colonel Todd DeGrossier, and he was the Marines' Marine, and he had been a sergeant on the enlisted side, and then also retired a couple years ago as a full colonel. And so over there, and he also received a Silver Star from the Battle of Fallujah as a major, which is pretty incredible what he was involved in, and really inspirational to his Marines. And so I had the honor of working for him. We knew each other from Marine Corps Rugby, and I was part of his small team. He called it his jump team, about a dozen of us. And so I got to watch firsthand because I don't come from an infantry background. I was a lawyer previous after doing it. So this is my first time in infantry. So I really learned a lot watching him, and just the respect he commanded, because he led from the front, and he wouldn't ask his Marines to do anything he wasn't willing to do and didn't do on a daily basis. And that, I want to be like that. I want to be that leader. And so Colonel Grossier is, I just talked to him last week. He's now actually the executive director of a group called, Project Healing Waters, which is taking wounded warriors out on the water on pretty cool fishing trips, which really helps in PTSD or post-traumatic stress and recovery. So Colonel Grossier is one. The other is a wounded warrior. Colonel Grossier is a wounded warrior too, but another gentleman named Tim Maxwell. And Tim and Shannon Maxwell were really incremental and real catalyst in the Wounded Warrior community. Before Tim was injured, there was no Wounded Warrior battalion in the Marines or nothing in any of the services. He was at Camp Lejeune. On his fifth deployment, he had some shrapnel go into his head and cause a pretty significant traumatic brain injury. He was recovering at Camp Lejeune. A long recovery. He thought all the Wounded Warriors should live together because what we're going through is so different than normal military life. Based on his efforts, they started a Wounded Warrior Battalion there, which ultimately turned into the Wounded Warrior Regiment, and that's where all the different groups came from. Now he and his wife Shannon have a great nonprofit doing wonderful things for folks with traumatic brain injury. And so those are two folks from the military who I look up to most. And so there are other folks in the private sector, but I'd like to just concentrate on Colonel Tim Maxwell and Colonel Todd Grossier.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Well, for everyone watching, we're going to post the link to President Bush's book, Portraits of Courage, and to your book, of course, your website. And then, of course, we can find you on Twitter, Facebook, and all the social media. Yeah. So thank you so much for talking to us today, Justin. I really appreciate it, and it was really great speaking with you.
Thank you, Erica. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here.